Classes in session.
Hey, how is everybody doing? Welcome to Unlearn 16 Classes in Session today, guys. Today, and I don't say this often, I have an amazing teacher all the way from Nebraska. First person I've ever met from Nebraska, Josh Monroe. And he has this phenomenal TikTok channel that I was blown away by. And Josh, I'm not impressed by many people. I'm putting that out there right now. I'm just not blown away, but the way that you talk to your kids and about your kids and the way that you bring to life your classroom on TikTok is, I think it should be emulated. I think it's incredibly inspirational, and I'm very happy to have you on my podcast. So welcome.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's an honor to be here.
Okay, tell me a little bit about yourself. So you're from Nebraska. Again, my first Nebraskan. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
I don't know. You're from Nebraska. Tell me a little bit about what you do, how you do it, where you do it, what the vibe is like in your school, and what you bring to the job.
All right. So I don't know how far back we want to go. I'm originally from Kansas City. Parents got divorced. Mom got remarried to a man that lived in Omaha. So I moved up to Nebraska. I've been teaching for 10 years, and I'm lucky enough to teach at the school that I attended in elementary.
Crazy. That's crazy, right?
Yeah, it truly is. And then it gets crazier, because when I was in 4th grade, I had this absolutely amazing teacher named Tom Henry. He changed my life, and he's the reason that I wanted to be a teacher. And now he's my teammate in 5th grade.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Shout out to Tom Henry.
Yes.
That is beautiful.
Anytime I have the opportunity to give him a shout out, I have to do it, because he changed my life. The way that he loved me as the person that I am is unreal, obviously, because I talk about him nonstop. So
right.
Again, shout out to Tom. So I've been teaching at my school for the last 10 years, and it's been amazing. I've absolutely loved it. I get to sit with my kids, and when they talk to me about things that they're going through, it's a school of high poverty. So when they talk,
that's really important, I think. Yeah, you said Title I school. Can you explain? So I'm from Canada. We have different sort of structures. So if you could explain a little bit about what Title I means.
Yeah. So if you have a certain percentage of your students that are free or reduced lunch, which means that your family is under a certain income, then you reach Title I standards, and you get additional funding from the government.
Okay.
So we reached that. When I started, I think we were at about 30% free and reduced. 10 years, it's changed. We're at like 53, 54% this year. So,
wow.
So things have definitely changed. But when my kids talk about life experiences, I'm able to relate to them, and I think that really helps me in the classroom, because I can say, hey, you're right that I don't know exactly what you're going through, but I have lived in your shoes. Like, I've walked the same streets that you've walked. I've had the same battles that you're battling. So it's really helped me build relationships and understand my students at a deeper level.
Wow, that is crazy. That is crazy. So, okay, before we get into sort of some education stuff, we're going to, just so everybody knows, yes, we're going to talk about COVID. Heaven help us. We're going to be talking about it. But we're going to talk about COVID. We're going to talk about classrooms. We're going to talk about masks. We're going to talk about teaching philosophy, mental health. We're going to get into it all. What made you go on TikTok? Because I know for me, it was like disaster, lockdown, boredom, TikTok. What drew you in, and how have you found the whole thing as being a teacher?
Okay, so I'd have to go back. COVID started, what was it, March 13th, 2020. Same school year, but rewind to the beginning of the year, my kids were obsessed with TikTok. That's all they talked about. They were doing the whoa, they were doing they were doing everything TikTok, and I just thought it was so goofy and so silly. I couldn't get into it.
Sure.
COVID happened, though, and I couldn't get my kids to come to Zooms at all.
Wow.
So I created a private account, and I was like, hey, if you come to the whole Zoom, I'll show you the TikTok
My
video that
TikTok.
that Nala and I made. So Nala's my therapy dog. So
Oh my God, that's amazing.
I'd make this goofy video. I'd save it to my phone. If they stayed
Right.
the whole time, I'd upload it and I'd show them. And they started to come. Like kids started to talk to each other, and they're like, "Mr. Monroe had this thing with Nala," and they'd be like, "Nala," because she's the real star. I gotta I gotta throw that out
Listen,
to everybody. My
you
dog
do
is
what you got to do, 100%.
so kids started to come. So I did it for the rest of the school year, and I didn't know how to check anything. I didn't know about likes or follower requests or anything. End of the school year, I was messing around with stuff. I saw it. I had like 100 follower requests. I was like, oh, cool. So I just accepted them all and made my
Right,
account
right.
public. Kept doing silly things with Nala, and then it really took my account sat at it grew over the summer, but it sat at about 30,000 followers until the start of the next school year. And then I saw a video of another teacher with a sleepy student, and he walked up and he said, "You're tired, I'm tired, let's get back to work." And it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. So I created my own version of it, and then my account just blew up.
I've seen it.
So,
Well, but here's the brilliant. First of all, I don't think I can stress enough, parents, for teachers, for everybody, what kids want isn't they don't want you to tell them what to do. They don't want you to drag them kicking and screaming into your world. They want you to give a crap about theirs. No
yeah,
matter how silly it is sometimes or whatever, and to take an interest. And my kids did the same thing, right? Because everybody's about TikTok. Now my kids are older. But by you jumping into their world and doing something that you thought was relatively silly, it opened up, in my opinion, it opened up a level of trust and interest and like connection, because all of a sudden you were doing something they know you probably would never do in real life. But you know what? You were doing it, and they're not dumb. Grade fives know you were doing it to get them to class, and but they were buying into it because it was authentic, because it was real, and because it's something they cared about. And that's, incredible. And then the funny part is, it's exactly what happened with me. As soon as you were truly authentic on that app, you saw somebody doing something, didn't make you feel good. And by the way, you didn't even take time to, be negatively drawn to that. You're like, I'm just going to do it my way, which is also incredibly impressive, especially on TikTok. And you did it your way. And all of a sudden, boom, right? You get this swell of people watching you and supporting you, and growing that account. And why? Not because you were doing a dance, not because you were pretending to be something, but because you were being exactly who you are. And there is the lesson, right?
yeah, 100%. Like being authentic uh, and being who you are. My students in class this week just read a story called Westlandia, but the theme of it is like walk to the beat of your own drum. Stop worrying about what everybody else does and just be true to who you are.
Yeah,
But we also ask kids every day like to take risks, and
yeah,
if we want to be true to that, we got to do it ourselves. So
absolutely.
it was a huge risk for us to get on TikTok. Like I heard an audio the other day, and they're like, for the older generation born in 1997 or something, and I was like, oh man, that's the old
Listen,
generation.
it's so offensive. I can't even. It's truly offensive.
Oh, that's how I
But
felt
it
when
is
I did that.
it's just and it was the risk, and it's interesting because coming from a place where we tell kids to walk to the beat of your own drum, be yourself, whatever, we also exist in this structure that is constantly pushing them to not walk to
Yeah,
your own beat of your own drum, right? We tell them how to dress, when to eat, where to sit, what classes to take, how to take them. We teach them, in a lot of ways, that first video that you're talking about, that their problems don't matter, that their reality isn't as important as the reality of the classroom or the teacher of the day. So buck up and do what you got to do to step it up to my reality. And we do all of that, and then we wonder, we're like, oh, why are kids such followers? Are you joking me?
Or
We've built a structure.
why do kids have all of these problems in my classroom, but we
Mm-hmm.
try to make them cookie cutters? And that's not how it should be, right? We should let them be themselves, and we should love them for that and embrace
Mm-hmm.
that. That's the part for me that in my growth that has been hard from where I started to where I'm at. And like looking back, it's been hard to reflect on that, where I started, and be like,
Yeah.
man, that guy in year one
Oh, year
had it
one.
all wrong.
All wrong. Right? It's so, people are like, how'd you know you wanted to be a teacher? Did you always know? I'm like, no. I'm like, listen, you can't know that you're a teacher or you're supposed to be a teacher until you're in it. And I'm going to go you one step further. You're going to have to wait till about year 3. you're you're going to have to push and try different things and try different things. And if you have the energy and the audacity and the wherewithal to keep kind of trying to figure out your path, by year 3, it should start making sense. By year 3, you're going to know if this is you or if it's not. And it's cool if it's not. But yeah, man, those early years. Whew.
They're hard. They're hard, right? Because
Yeah.
like every day, at least where I sit now, I look back and I'm like, wow, I sucked.
Yeah.
Like how can I be better the next day? Like
Mm-hmm.
teaching, you can't be a LeBron James from day one where you're like the gifted
Mm-mm.
one. It's not something that you just walk into and you're amazing. It takes a lot of growth and a lot of reflection and true reflection
Mm-hmm.
to change lives, right? It's a hard
Absolutely.
it's a hard job.
It's a, and to do it well. Now, you and I would both know teachers, and you saw one on TikTok that roll into that job and don't quite do it and quite look at it the same way that we do. But to do it well, and it's funny. Every year, I step into that classroom and I think, because everybody said, "What's the best part of your? Why do you love teaching so much?" I'm like, "Because I learn every day. Every day, every day I learn something. And to be open to that and to be aware of how brilliant children are if we just get the education rules structure out of their way for 5 minutes. Now, I've never taught grade 5. I know you teach grade 5. My youngest was grade 6. But what I was astounded by with grade 6 is all they wanted to do was learn crap. That's it. Every day they'd come in and they'd say, Joanna, how does a battery work? I said, listen, do I look like the science teacher? You're going to have to go down the hall to figure that out. But they would come to me with questions and they would laugh when I didn't know. And then I'd say, but let's figure it out together. And I think even just a teacher admitting, I have no idea how, that works. And then I started getting, and I'm sure you do in grade 5, all sorts of questions, right? Because those little ears would hear the grade 12s talking. And all of a sudden, I'd have a litany of questions where I'd be like, Joanna, so and so was talking about a roofie. What's a roofie? And I'd be like, oh, all right. What's a
I
roofie?
don't get those questions.
You don't get that? Oh, because my school goes from 7 to 12. So it's a weird dynamic of a private school, but they're listening to everything. And so once you build that trust, guess who they come ask?
Oh yeah.
I've waited for the last 20 years, I've waited for a phone call from a parent saying, Joanna, stop talking to my kid. Why are you answering questions about what abortion is? I'm like, listen, they come to me, they ask. The last thing I want to do to any kid is make them feel bad about a question or turn them away and say, I'm not going to answer that, because I'm not going to make them feel ashamed of that either. So guess what? There I am answering roofie questions, but there's no, it's kind of beautiful because there's no grade attached to their desire to learn.
Yeah. And some of those questions, like I've never been asked those questions that you're talking
I'm going to
about.
send them to you now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go to Josh's TikTok. Type in
Oh,
questions from Ontario students.
the hard part, I think, like sitting as a parent, my kid could Google that, right? Like,
Yeah.
do I want them to learn from some unknown source, or do I want them to learn from an adult that they trust? That,
Mm-hmm.
at least where I sit, like, I'm like, go ask an adult that you trust, right? Like,
Yeah.
put the device down and ask somebody
100%.
that cares and loves about you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
Absolutely.
that's a hats off to you for building that environment where students feel safe enough to ask you questions that I don't think every kid can ask every teacher that they've ever
No. Yeah.
had,
Oh, they
right?
started making it a game out of it. It was highly enjoyable for them. Um, but I'm assuming grade five is similar because what I find, unfortunately, listen, have you ever taught grade seven and eight?
No, the fifth is the
Night.
highest I've been. I've only been
Okay.
lower than fifth.
Well, good for you because you've never encountered puberty, and it really is the great equalizer. Grade seven and eight gets messy. It just get on many levels, right? And I'll joke with my grade eights. I'm like, listen, guys, you're going through some stuff right now, right? And by the end of grade eight, I'm like, you're not my most favorite group of kids right now because you need to figure it all out. Can you go away for grade nine? Because I don't teach any grade nine courses. Can you go away for grade nine and come back in grade 10 all sorted? That would be lovely for me. And we joke about puberty all the time and having to go through that. Um, but the thing about grade six, and I wonder if it's the same for you, is because puberty isn't a thing yet, they're not impressing kids the same way. They're not thinking about adulthood in the same way. So there's something so authentic and pure about them just wanting to know stuff. And I feel like your grade, all grades, but your grade particularly, I mean, that's a make or break era for a kid. Am I going to like school? Am I going to trust teachers? Am I going to feel empowered here? Am I going to feel heard? Do you feel like that in grade five?
Yeah, I what you're talking about with were you saying eighth grade, like just take a break, or was that seventh?
Well, it depends because now kids hit it at different times, right? But it usually is eighth grade that you start. They kind of start like
Yeah.
this, and then we have to talk about showers and we have to talk about deodorant, and then they get to a point where they've stopped caring about the teacher. Really, like they really don't care if you like them much. They just really want their friends to like them. So you hit a different road there, right?
So that's like the end. That's like fourth quarter for fifth grade where I'm at, because
Oh, really?
after fifth grade they go to different schools. Is That's where middle school
Oh,
starts.
okay.
And so some friends go here and some friends go there, and they start building different relationships and start caring
Right.
about how's this girl or this boy look at me, and
Yeah.
they start to get stinky. You touched on that, so we gotta have some of those talks.
Yeah, for sure.
But you're right. Like, it where they're at, they love learning, and
Hmm.
it's really important. I think um, I have a kindergarten son,
Hmm.
and for me, I think it's even important for him, even in kindergarten.
Yeah.
Like, I need his teacher to empower him in his education, and she does an amazing job with that, of teaching
Yeah.
him the importance of fixing his mistakes. And mistakes aren't wrong. That's how we learn. But I think that builds up into when they get into fifth grade, or to you, right? Like, that they've learned,
Hmm.
just because I've made a mistake doesn't mean that I failed. It's an opportunity for me to learn from that and then grow even more.
Hmm.
And I feel like that's what we need more of in education,
Yeah.
is those opportunities to grow.
Do you feel like, I mean, and I understand in elementary it's a little bit different, but I know that by the time they get to high school, it's like we push these kids to pick a career, which is hysterical. What, in 10th grade, that's when they're supposed to have life figured out? Go talk to my 40-year-old friends. I don't think people understand trajectories. But number one, figure it out. But also, like, decide what you're good at, and what you're not good at, stop taking it, right? Like, and that logic or that mentality, I think, just bleeds into everything else. Oh, you're really good at math and physics? That's all you're going to take, right? Forget music, forget art, forget drama, because this is what you're good at. So do what you're good at. And all of a sudden, we've decided A, you're not going to be a well rounded individual, and B, we are only judging value based on the marks you get, not the learning you do.
Okay, so that's what I was going to say. I don't know how Canada is like if you do. They're called provinces up there, right?
Yes,
Like
provinces,
you do,
yes.
you do.
I love, side note, wait. I love how tentatively an American said they're called provinces, right? That's it. I'm sending down a Canadian history course for you all. You're going to teach it at grade 5. We're going to talk about Canadian government.
We would need to because we don't have it.
Right.
Do you guys have like tests then for your province? Because we have.
No, so we don't do standard. Well, okay, so here's how it works right now. We don't do any end of the grade 12 sort of an SAT kind of thing. We don't do that. If we're going to school in the States, the kids write your SAT. We don't do standardized tests unless it is. We do some EQAO tests early on in math to see if they're living up to the like to or sort of to a basic standard. And we also do a literacy test in grade 10.
Okay. Yeah. So
I don't buy much into standardized testing, but
yeah, I don't either because our standardized tests start at grade 3, and really they're
yeah.
starting to start at kindergarten because they take something called a MAP test, which looks at their growth through the year. So it's a little different, I
Okay.
guess, than a standardized test. But grade 3, they take a standardized test, and from that moment on, you're pretty much a number, right? And like I remember where I was in grade 4, I was in the low reading group, in the low math group, and I remember that. Like how do we look at that and not think kids when
Yeah.
we ability group and we're like, okay, you're going to go to this teacher, and you come back together as a whole group, and they're like, yeah, we were learning about exponents, and I sit here and I'm like, I was learning how to do subtraction or whatever.
Yeah.
Kids make those connections, right? I feel like we put too much of an emphasis on here's your weakness instead of here's your strength.
Hmm.
Um, and I think those types of things need to start changing. There's a cool, I don't want to call it an activity because that's not the right word, but it's called 20% time or passion projects or genius hour, that it's trickled down from Google, and it's where kids get time to learn about what they're passionate about. So we've had kids in our class learn how to change tires, learn how to knit blankets.
Amazing.
Right. It's so cool. I could talk about this forever because the
It's
things that they,
amazing.
the things that they do are unbelievable. It's unreal. I had a kid. He's in 8th grade now, so it was 4 years ago. His huge passion was basketball, and as I was saying earlier, we live in a low poverty, so at night there's nowhere for them to play. But he has a park across the street. So he did this research about basketball. But then I was like, hey, what would be really cool is if you were able to play basketball at night, right? He's like, well, I can't do that. There's no lights on the court. And I was like, well, what if we make it possible? And so he did this research, and it went down a different route than basketball. But then he's getting those standards with like math and different subject areas. He wrote to the mayor. He wrote to, it was an election year for our city, so he wrote to a mayor that was running for election. That the mayor that was running for election ended up coming and talking to him and talking about like how the Power Public District works, and it was just unbelieve that this one
That's
thing about
amazing.
I want to play basketball. I was like, well, what if you play at night? I can't do it. Let's change it,
Hmm.
right? Like you give students the opportunity to focus in on what they care about, what they're passionate about, what their strengths are, and then we can really, really change education.
Absolutely. A thousand, and Canada, I mean, so the way it works in Canada, and it's a little bit obviously different in the States, is each provincial government sets educational guidelines for the province. So I know it's different for you guys. So I have a curriculum that I follow that the Ontario government or the Ontario Ministry of Education has set. And that would be different depending on what province you go. And that curriculum, there's a lot of hoops and whatever to change it or to moderate it or whatever, but that applies to every school across the board. Whereas in the States, from what I understand, it's not so common. I know you guys have Common Core, but really individual schools, sometimes boards, sometimes districts get to decide what the curriculum is going to be. And what I've seen over the years is we've really made a move away from, especially at the high school, obviously the high school, we moved away from anything vocational. So there used to be this amazing school close to where I teach, and it was a vocational school, so it was like a tech school, and they had a car wing, they had esthetician and hair wing, they had a cooking wing, and I you go there and it was, these kids did everything. I'm like, they also did obviously the curriculum that they had to pass, but then there's these amazing, woodworking and that kind of thing. And I'm just like, this is amazing. But of course it was in a low income area. Of course it was geared towards kids that they've just decided aren't smart enough, and I use that, I don't like air quotes for those who are listening, I used air quotes, scratch that. They've decided these are the kids that are low income, there was some gang issues within the area, they're not going to go to university anyway, so this is what we're going to give them. What I have a big problem with is, number one, they got rid of the school, it's done, it doesn't exist anymore. But number two, why on earth are we prioritizing one form of education and passion over another? Why on earth are we deciding which kid should be going where? And I'll tell you, it takes one hell of a lot of intelligence to be an amazing mechanic or an electrician, or it takes a creative genius to be a chef. Why are we undervaluing it? And now we're getting rid of it altogether, right? Just
Yeah.
like, oh, out it goes.
I wish I had an answer for you because it would be awesome to see it circle back the other way. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I was in high school, I took a woodworking class. I
Mm-hmm.
haven't I haven't gone back to my high school since, but I hope it's still there because that was
Yeah.
valuable to me, and I do nothing with woodwork,
Mm-hmm.
but there are kids that need those outlets, right? Like I think as teachers, it's important to stress to kids, college isn't for everybody. There's amazing things that you can do without going to college, you know?
Yeah. Well, absolutely. But also, like, I have kids that'll be like, listen, electrician or plumber or whatever. And you're like, well, my mom wants me to go to university. I'm like, heck yeah, do it all. Do it all. If you're not hung up by economic boundaries, then you know what? Go to university or go to college, get a business degree, learn how to run your own business so that when you get to do what you love, you get to be, you're going to be a mechanic, you can own your own shop, you're going to own your own plumbing company, your own electrical company, you're going to create your own line of furniture and sell it to all the yuppies downtown Toronto. Do it all. Do it all. Don't restrict yourself. And I'm so exhausted in our education system of watching us restrict kids. You're good at this, this is what you're going to do, this is all you're going to do. I think we should be sort of forcing us, and I say this all the time, I like to try to do what I suck at for a while. Let's see if I can get better.
Well, I think that's how you become a better person, right? Like
Hmm.
you take weaknesses that you have and you try to grow them into strengths. I think
Absolutely.
that's a value, a skill that society, our world even needs more of. Is saying, "Hey, I'm not very good at this. I'm going to work to build it up."
Absolutely. I think we just need to have more space for that. But I guess the bottom line of that space is, like for anything else, how much money are we willing to invest? Right?
I think that's fair.
That's the bottom line.
I think that's fair. Yeah,
Right?
it'd be nice too if. So I'm going to go a different route then, and I'm going to say it'd be nice. It'd be nice too because I feel like society lacks in things that don't even cost money, like empathy and kindness, right? Like if we could take
Absolutely.
some time to focus in on those areas, and how can I be a better person. It's not going to cost you any money. Like, let's just learn how to be kinder. Or for you and I, like, I know I've read comments that you get on videos you post. You've got trolls in there like I do. Like,
Oh yeah.
what if we could teach those people, like, hey, do you understand the person behind the video you're watching is a real person? Right?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
pump the brakes for a second and ask yourself, are you helping to make the world a better place? Or are you diminishing what you probably believe if the keyboard's gone?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And I think this goes into something that I was really excited to talk to you about, which is sort of we have a huge push up here. I don't know what it looks like down there of mental health and mental health access, and especially mental health of our kids going through all of the COVID and the lockdowns and the masks and all of that. And everybody's saying, well, kids have to be in school because that's where they're mentally healthy. And I start looking at all of this stuff, and start thinking a few things. Uh, I'm not trained in. I don't know about you. I haven't been trained in mental health. So how, if we're serious about it, and I'm serious about it, why not have somebody at the school who's a child psychologist and their sole job isn't to come there on a Tuesday of every second month, is to exist there and be there for the kids? Why not that? Why not, if mental health is so incredibly important, why not bring back physical fitness on a significant level, or nutritional health on a significant level? And we don't do any of these things, yet we say, well, when kids aren't at school, they're not healthy. Well, I also worry what's going on at home.
Right?
Are you just trying to get them out of your house? Is the home the problem? Because
That
if the home is the source of the unhealthy kid, mentally speaking, we're not solving that problem by sending them off to school during a pandemic,
right.
right? Because they still have to go. Now, they can spend less time there, but we're still not dealing with that problem. So now, I know in the States, you guys don't have full medical coverage. I mean, up here, there's been a huge push to include mental health in physical health, right? So you need to see a psychologist, you go for free. We don't have that here, by the way. Lots of people would like to see that here. But I think for kids, do you not feel like that is, you're just talking about empathy, you're talking about all of these really big things, when in actuality, these kids, grade 5, grade whatever, are going through heaven only knows what? Do we not think that that is a vital investment to be made?
Yeah, it 100% is. So my school is different. That we went remote from March till the end of the year in 2020, and we've been
Right.
in person since then.
Oh, wow.
So I sit at a very different place than a lot of other people that I talk to.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're saying is still true. Like, kids still need that opportunity to talk to professionals, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I love talking about social emotional health and learning.
Right.
I'm not a psychologist. Like, I do things like read books about how to help kids and how to talk to kids and all of this. I'm not trained. I don't have a college degree in psychology. We need kids to have those opportunities to
Mm-hmm.
sit down and have some true conversations that they don't have with me, because I'm not trained to do that, right? And you talked about
Yeah.
at home. There's things that go on at home. I don't know how else to reiterate what you said, because you nailed it on the head. Like, we need more for our school districts to help kids with areas that are not academically related. And
Mm-hmm.
I think two school districts need to kind of pump the brakes on reading, writing, and arithmetic. And we need to say these are important, but so is mental health. And so we're going to knock out some time blocks and make time for that. Because
Mm-hmm.
I went to a school district the other week and talked to them about the importance of social emotional learning and embedding it in everything you do. And one teacher looked at me and said, "Well, I don't have time to do that." And I was just taken back because I sit at the point where I'm like, standards are secondary to me. They're very important, but they are secondary to loving kids and being there for them. So I build
Mm-hmm.
time, right? And I feel like other teachers feel the stress that governments put on them and the hats they have to wear. And it becomes a very thin line of what you're talking about. We're not trained to do all of this.
Very little of it, yes. In that capacity, for sure.
Yeah, and we keep getting hats thrown on our heads like, okay, well, you're the teacher, and sorry, we don't have enough money, so now you're the art teacher too. Sorry, we don't have enough money, so gym class, that's on you. Like there's just
Right.
a lot of stuff that I think needs to be worked out. The importance of the world needs to be worked out. And
Mm-hmm.
I hope that COVID has helped us to take a step back and realize that, right? Like I talk about with my kids, if math isn't your favorite thing in life, that doesn't hurt my feelings. I don't care. Let's figure out what it is. It goes back to what we were saying. Let's figure out what's most important to you, and let's grow on those
Mm-hmm.
strengths and figure out how to
Right.
make you the best person that you can be.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I
I
probably went
think
off, I probably went off on a tangent there.
no, not at all. No, I think that's all incredibly important. And I think that it's interesting because if anybody would ever listen to a if we're so, see, mental health gets thrown around here like a political, you know,
It's totally political.
hot potato, that they just say it like they're supposed to say it, but nobody actually is doing anything about it. But if somebody could show, there would be such causal links between mental health, child protection, child empowerment at a young age, and their physical health, their future physical health, their future health surrounding drugs and alcohol, their future health surrounding obviously mental health, their future surrounding, are they going to become embedded in some kind of criminal activity? All of these things cost us a boatload of money. Boatload of money. All of this offset for not taking care of mental health here. All of this costs 100 times more than this ever would, but nobody's willing to pay for them at the same time because we're going to have to transition, right? We're still going to have the crappy outcomes from not taking care of this generation's mental health. But if we flood, and I do mean flood, the educational system with a mental health overview for the next generation, we're going to be paying twice as much for a while. But then watch how it cleans up, right? Watch how, I don't, my kid has horrible mental health at home. He has to be back at school. I don't know how I'm supposed to do this. And I want to take a step back and tell that parent, listen to how you're speaking. How about, and I know it's not easy, and I know it's not, there's no clear answers, but people need to start taking accountability of the role they play. Everybody's like, my kid gets no socialization because they're under lockdown. My answer to them is always, we can go outside. We said no sitting in a classroom with your face covered and sitting 6 feet away from somebody, and no sports, by the way, or anything like that up here. We never said don't go outside. We never said don't get physical activity. Nobody's ever said that. What people have done in this mess of a pandemic is they've decided, if I can't do that, everything else is off the table and I'm not changing anything. Right?
That was something. Part of me is happy my kids were the age that they were when COVID happened because their life in school wasn't affected. Part
Right.
of me wishes that they were a little bit older because when it did start happening, we went on more walks, right? Like as a
Mm-hmm.
family, we became closer. We talked more.
Yeah.
We played more. We My son, what was it? He was 3. My daughter was 2. Like we played on the ground with them more. Like it brought us together more.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
and the fact my kid can't socialize, I know that socializing face to face is way different than a computer. But how many of those people that say that also then let their kid go play on like PS5 or Xbox, and that's what their kid does for socialization at school? You're like, well,
Yes,
your kid can do what they were still doing.
trust me, they're at school like this anyways.
Yeah.
It looks the same.
Oh,
It looks the same
that's
because we're not socializing well at this point. We need a complete overhaul of the way we do school, and it has nothing to. COVID should have highlighted, rather than saying go back to school so you can socialize, COVID should have highlighted, wow, we're doing school wrong anyways before. We got to really revamp all of that. And it's not because the teachers don't want to work hard. And it's not because the kids don't want to talk. No, we have been lulled into a methodology of sit down, be quiet, take your no. It's all bad. It's all bad. And the more kids you have in your class, by the way, the less socializing that happens. I tell you, a lot of bullying happens, a lot of like texting
a lot of
but we're
click.
really not. A lot of cliques happen, yeah, and but we're not necessarily socializing. That word has been thrown around more times, especially in this province, and I don't think people know what it means anymore. I think they keep using it. I'm like, I don't think you understand the word because that's not what's happening, and it never was happening in high school. um I don't know if it's true the same as down there.
Well, it's probably close to socialization and social media are like becoming intertwined with each other. That that's what kids think of
Yeah.
is socializing, right? Is friends that I have on the internet that I've never met, I've never
Mhm.
done anything with, but I really like this post that they had, so they're my friend.
Well, there we go. And everything has changed, right? Whereas, and that's for me, a lot of people are like, oh, well, when they come into school, you have to put your phones away, or you have to put them in your locker, you're not going to have them. I'm like, I don't know about that because part of me as a teacher, I think it's my job to teach them how to have that device and still be a part of the world. Because guess what? This device isn't going away. So I can lock them up at the beginning of class, but then I'm not doing what I need to be doing, which is teaching them how to balance that. Teach them how to be present and then still respond to their mom about a text message because it's usually their mom texting them in the middle of class anyway. Like all of these things they're all in a very fine balance, and we've done a really really bad job at enforcing the balance. I have lots of parents who are like, Joanna, I can't get my son off the PlayStation. And I get call I don't know if you get I get calls to parent people's kids a lot, and my response would be, take it. what,
Yes.
what do you mean you can't get him off it? Ta-
Oh,
take it.
I had a student. He's probably in 10th or 11th grade now, but when he was in my class in 4th grade. His dad came to me and he's like, I just have a real problem with him falling asleep. And I was like, well, what's going on? Like, what's happening? He's like, he won't shut the TV off. And I said, well, did you ask him to go to his room? Yeah, he's in his room. The TV's in his room. I was like, then take the TV away. Like, like some.
It's not rocket science. Look, like I'll have parents and it'll be like, I can't get my kid off the phone. I said, and I joke with my kids all the time. I've never actually done it, but I swear to God, one time I'm gonna film a TikTok. I'm gonna get a fake phone and I'm gonna plan it with a kid. And I'm gonna say, listen, I'm gonna take this from you in class because you haven't listened to me when I ask you to put it away and you're playing a game. We're gonna have a little bit of a theatrical presentation. I'm gonna take it. And the whole class is gonna go out to my car and I'm gonna tuck it behind my tire and I'm gonna back up. um, and we're gonna watch the response of everybody. I said, parents are afraid of having, like, if I take the PlayStation away, Joanna, if I take the phone away,
You're
then
gonna
I
be
have to deal with
the
my
behavior that
kid.
comes with it. Like
Well,
you don't want to get to that point, right?
there it is. How are we here? And let's assume you have a 15-year-old that's going to give you all sorts of attitude when you take away their phone. Okay, well that's where we are. Here we are. Do you want to leave it like this forever or do you want to fix it now?
It's kind
Your
of like
choice.
where in Batman they say it's always darkest before the light, right? Like if you
I
let it
like the
get
Batman
bad,
ref.
if you let it get bad, it's
Yeah,
going to get worse when you try to fix it. But if you
absolutely.
stick with it and you're consistent, it'll be better. It just takes a little
Absolutely.
bit of time once you let it get that bad. I made a
Mhm.
video. I don't remember when it was. I've made a couple phone videos, and I always get hate for it. The latest one that I made, I walked up and I said, "Hey, you've been on your phone for 5 minutes. It's time to put it away." The kid says, "I'm not going to do it." And I say, "Okay, thanks for being honest." I move
I
on,
saw that video. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I come back later and I say, "Okay, now we're going to sit down and we're going to have a plan, right? Like we're either going to talk to your parents, your phone does this, but it's that consistency. I'm not going to have a power struggle with you in the moment when there's 20 other kids. But
Horrible idea.
once it's one,
That's what you learn teaching year 1, 2, and 3. No power struggles in front of their friends because they will die on that hill. They will bleed to death. They will rot and stink up the classroom, but they are going to die in front of their friends before
yes,
backing down to any teacher.
I will get suspended, but I will not be embarrassed in front of my friends, right?
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
that's where that came from. And I got comments about like embarrass them and they'll learn, do this and they'll learn. I'm like, just pump the
No, they
brakes
don't.
and understand where I'm coming from, right? Like I'm not going to distract everybody else's learning, but I'm also not going to let that slide. I understand that
Hmm.
what they're doing is disrespectful. We will have that talk and I will hold them accountable because I am
Hmm.
not going to let it go down the road where they think, "Oh, I'm going to come into class
Yeah.
and I'm going to be on my phone because he's just going to say, 'Oh, thanks for being honest.'" That's not how it works, right? Like
Yeah.
if we
That's not the end of the conversation. Yes.
right, that's what's hard
Hmm.
sometimes on TikTok. You got 60 seconds to tell a story,
Yeah.
and we do the best we can to tell that story.
Absolutely. I think it's interesting because I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I said, like you are the nicest, most well-balanced teacher and I applaud you. I don't think I have your I know I don't have your patience. But I have learned about that hill that I'm not going to die on. So I know that sometimes, especially when teenagers get a little bit older. And I have a very open classroom, right? They call me by my first name. I love good debates. I like discussions. We can joke around, but then there's the line. Every teacher knows where the line is. And I say, guys, and I always say, guys, that's the line, right? And then you'll have a kid push it a little bit harder. And I'll say, dude, no, that's the line. We're drawing the line. We're going to move on. And then sometimes, every once in a blue moon, it gets less as you get older, um, a kid wants to still push it. And I'll very calmly say, okay, you're going to go down this road. Are you sure this is the hill you want to die on? And whatever it is he or she is doing, if they don't change their behavior, I'll say, fine, and I'll leave it because I'm not going to do that in classroom, right? It's the after the classroom, I then say, okay, now here are all the ramifications because this was the hill you chose. So now here's the consequence. And sometimes they'll say, well, I don't like the consequence. And I'll say, yeah, I don't care.
But
Here's the
bummer.
consequences. Yep, here are the consequences. I gave you ample time to nicely not go down the road anymore. You still chose to traverse, so here we are. My biggest problem is when I give the consequences and the parents say things like, but Joanna, I still think they should have their phone. And I'm like,
Now it's not an option. Those are my favorite. When
I hate that so
those are,
much because they don't want to fight at home.
you're right. I say it's my favorite. It's really not. It's my least favorite. But
Yeah.
those are the hard moments as teachers, right? When you're like, here's the boundary that I set. Your kid
Hmm.
crossed that line. Here's the
Hmm.
consequence that happens, and the parents like, well, I don't think that that's really fair. And you look at them,
I
you're like,
can't.
I don't care if you think it's fair or not. I told your student this would happen or this would happen.
Yeah.
They made this choice. This is what they live with.
We got to go down that road.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you that because lots of people say, if you could give a piece of advice to a new teacher, what would it be? And I always say, and I'm going to ask you for your piece of advice too,
Oh,
as we're
all
we're
right.
already rounding up to an hour, man. We could talk we're going to have to make this a series, I think. We didn't even go down any of the roads we said we were going to go down. But I always say this: Have crystal clear expectations. Have crystal clear consequences. And come heaven or hell, follow through with those consequences with all of your weight and respect for as long as you need to, and then add your personality after. That's it. That's it. It's clear expectation, clear consequence, respect, and then follow up. What would be your, I'm a brand new teacher. I'm going to go into year 1. It's going to suck. What's your
All right,
advice?
so I feel like I have to give two because
Okay.
the second one's going to go down your route. The first one is that remember, there's always tomorrow. One of the things that I really struggled with was working outside contracted hours. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but I mean, I was staying late at
Oh,
night,
yeah.
way later than I needed to.
Right.
There's always tomorrow, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
no matter how long you sit there and you make sure that everything looks aesthetically pleasing, kids are going to be there. Kids are going to love you
Mm-hmm.
if you treat them with respect and if you show them that you care about them. So there's always tomorrow. The other one is pretty much exactly what you're saying. Set firm limitations, give choices, but then also follow through. Like if that third piece of not following through isn't
Yeah,
there,
that third one.
then your year's going to be hell, right? And I
Yep.
struggled with that as a first year teacher because it was very much, well, you got to do this or this is going to happen, you do this or this is going to happen, but I really struggled with that following through part, right?
Mm-hmm.
Once you learn the importance of, hey, you can choose to do your math now, or we can call your grown up and we'll do it together after school. Which one would you like? You choose not to do it. All right, we're calling your grown up, right? Like, I'm not going to be scared. We're going to call them, and that's what's going to happen.
Yep.
But you got to follow through. So you give my big thing, I guess, was give choices and follow through. Make sure that there are 2 things or 3 things that you can actually follow through with.
Absolutely. That's it. That's it. And I would expect, parenting and teaching. I mean, that's what we're doing for 8 hours a day. It's a lot of parenting that comes with my teaching because that's the case. And if I don't, not only do I lose that student if I don't have a clear consequence and follow through, the other 15 of them just realized, oh, amazing. This is going to be a fun year because Joanna's going to say we have to do it after school, but we know Joanna doesn't want to stay after school. She's not going to stay after school. She's not going to call my mom because she doesn't want to have that conversation because my mom's a real pain in the butt. And I'm just going to get to go outside. There it is. And there is the downward spiral. I think of a lot. To be honest, I don't even think it is teaching. I think this is just a world lesson. I think everybody should learn this lesson, no matter where you live, no matter what job you do. I think it's a
Yeah,
valuable thing.
it 100% is. I first read about it in Love and Logic, amazing book. It was set for parenting. I read it as a teacher, and I just worked to imply it. It changed my life when I realized, oh, okay, so I can't say we're going to do it after school if I'm not willing to do that, right? Like we got to give,
That's right.
if we're going to give choices, they have to be things that we can follow through with. And then we avoid things like burnout. Like teaching's always going to be hard, but
Yeah.
that's where some of those harder parts come in when we can't follow through with what we say.
Amazing. And on that note, I think we've solved all the educational crises in the world. I think we're good to go. Josh, thank you so much. Josh from Nebraska, my first Nebraskan. Thank you so much for being on my podcast. I really appreciate it. I would love to have you back on, talk about maybe we'll solve some other crises later.
Hey, I appreciate it. I had a lot of fun, Joanna. It has been amazing to sit down and talk with you, learn with you, and grow with you.
Thank you so much, love. Go check him out on TikTok. What's your TikTok handle?
At Mr. Monroe and Nala.
There we go. And I will put everything, all the links in the bio in the description down here. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. We will see you next Tuesday. Same bat time, same bat station. Dismissed.